Okay, well, I think we'll get started. It's a couple minutes after, so I will take a roll here. Lee Adams, I don't see on. No Jeff, no Paul yet. Where's Sonia? We have Dr. Minnie Prince. No Jim, no Art, no Amber, no Tommy. Angela's on. No Mike Knopf yet. Chad is not gonna be able to make it. No Derek. Paulette, I don't see. Tina, I don't see. Kelly Scott's here. And Angela's here. And Barry. And Paulette in the room. And we have Lori there too. So great. Thank you everyone for being here. I know this is only the fourth meeting this year. So I appreciate you guys taking the time out to be here today. We do have some updates, not a whole lot to report, but I'm glad we're still able to get together to do this. So first, I guess we need a motion to approve the tax July 9th. And do we have a second? Great. I think, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So first things first is we have the BEAD funding update. This year was mainly the MAP challenge. We did the MAP challenge earlier this year. We've attended a lot of conferences and we've done a lot of digital equity work, which Angela will share with us when we get to that section. So, you know, where the year before we were doing a lot of research and needs assessment. This year we were hoping to get, you know, a little bit farther along than we are. But as the county and as this group goes, I think we've done pretty good on keeping on track as far as we can, right? Because the BEAD funding is what is kind of holding things up for us. So the BEAD program is supposed to, that funding is supposed to fill the gaps between other programs that have been out there, both federal and state funding that's been out there for broadband. So yeah, thanks. Thanks, Brent. That'd be good. So, you know, there's been money out there with the Robin grant. And so the BEAD money is there to fill the gaps. And MyHigh, the Michigan Internet Office, they have submitted their proposals to the NTIA for approval. I mean, of course, the first one we know has been approved. That was about the mapping challenge. The second volume was the details for the actual funding, how the application process is going to go. And that has also been approved by NTIA. What has not been approved by NTIA and what has been the big holdup is the MAP challenge results. So NTIA wants to make sure, and MyHigh and the county and everybody involved wants to make sure that every household that is eligible for BEAD funding is represented on the map. And that means all unserved and underserved locations. We did a big challenge at the county. You know, we are still waiting for the results for that. Part of the holdup has been with RDOF funding recipients have been defaulting on their commitments. And so MyHigh has actually taken a step back, you know, rightfully so, to make sure that those areas that were supposed to be covered by RDOF, the ones that have defaulted actually will qualify for funding. So that has been a holdup, and now we're still waiting on NTIA to approve that. So right now the pre-application process is open for BEAD funding. So ISPs and governments who want to apply for funding are definitely encouraged to, you know, get online and do their pre-registration process. But the application window has not yet opened. So once the maps and those eligible locations are approved, then we'll have about 30 days to review those maps. And then after that, there'll be a 90-day window where entities can then apply for funding. Then after that, there's like a 2-month negotiation period for the first round. And that's where MyHigh will work with ISPs to make sure that areas are covered. They'll see where the gaps are. You know, if one ISP is taking one section of the county, but leaving out another section of the county, they'll work through that and try and make sure that all the addresses are covered. And then there'll be a second round of applications to fill those spots in Michigan that did not get filled with the first round. So we are hoping, MyHigh is hoping that, you know, through that first round, ISPs and other entities will have everything covered in Michigan. But with the second round, it gives them another option to make sure everyone is covered. Does that make sense? So in the meantime, we hope to, honestly, I've been putting off meeting with ISPs. We met with them a few months ago to talk about what their plans are, but all of us are just waiting for these maps so we can solidify what it's actually going to look like for Calhoun. So, you know, once we get the map, then we'll be able to meet with the ISPs and get, you know, their full, you know, a better understanding of what they want to do in the area for coverage. We do know that there's interest in Calhoun, so I think everything is going to be covered by some ISP. We have 123net, MEC, and ACD. You know, those are just three that are interested. There's a couple smaller ones too that might be interested as well. So the next thing besides meeting with RSPs is one part of the application process is community letters of support. So it goes a long way. Hi, Art. Letters of support will go a long way for these ISPs to get funding. It's about 6% of their total point, I guess. And they are required to get 10 letters of support from anchor institutions, whether it's schools, colleges, nonprofits, that kind of thing. And they do need a support letter from the county as well. So they'll be reaching out to townships as well to get letters of support. I'm hoping that, you know, those would kind of be through us, you know, we can, Kelly and I will be meeting with ISPs and, you know, probably supporting any action that they want to do in the county, but we can definitely share that with you so that way you know what ISPs we are interested in working with and supporting and what the county is going to do for letters of support. I'm also happy to give you templates and share templates with you when that time comes for writing letters of support for these ISPs. If you get contacted, please feel free to reach out to me and I can help with that in any way. So that should be coming hopefully in the next, I don't know, month or two. What do you think, Kelly? You know, I mean, yeah.
I would like to think by the end of the year. I think that's their hope was in December to get this stuff out.
Right. Right. You know, originally we were supposed to have the map approved in August and it is now December. So that's kind of where we are at with the BEAD funding.
And I would say it's worth the wait because if any of those rural development grant recipients default, then that will just add to the areas that will qualify. So we don't want them to rush through the application process and leave those addresses left behind if they really do need to be added. And just, Lynn, if you can just confirm for the group, the application for even the first round can include underserved and unserved, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And I'm forgotten what they decided to do with fixed wireless, whether they are considered underserved or not.
Well, they are supposed to be underserved. So they should qualify for BEAD funding. Now with new administration starting in January, there is some rumor that things may change with that because there's talk about both satellite services and fixed wireless being eligible for BEAD funding with the new administration. Now, that's just rumor. We don't have anything confirmed at all, obviously, from that, but Mike may have something to add for that part of it. Do you want to add now, Mike, or later?
Sure. I promised only to offer relevant thoughts, which are kind of hard to come by because, as Lynn mentioned, there's so many rumors. The new administration is not in place yet, obviously, but just gleaning the tea leaves, a few thoughts, if I can. First, in Michigan, thank God, our elected leadership is probably going to provide us a pretty good forum compared to a lot of other places. And I've advised our ProTech clients that we're going to focus in on Michigan as opposed to the federal agencies who look like they're going to have a very rough couple of years. And the best news of all is that our Supreme Court is now 5-2 in favor of most of our friends and policy friends on our issues. So that's the good news. On the Fed side, yeah, Lynn, to your point about fixed wireless and satellite, well, we understand that Mr. Musk is very close to the new president to be, and obviously has a significant satellite business. Meanwhile, the industry has been pushing through Senator Cruz and others that fixed wireless ought to be uh, dealt with just like fiber. We know it's not technically, but that's probably where things are going to lean. And so we should probably expect that BEAD funding will be pushed to accept those two alternatives. Um, let's see, and then just quickly, um, well, the issue of BEAD, I just have to mention the issue of BEAD funding. I mean, there's plenty of rumor going on about the ultra conservative folks who might rule the day in the new Congress and in the administration may try and approach those federal funds. There's pushback that you can't unwind what's already been spent, but it's just something to be aware of that's out there. And then quickly from Washington, government funding expires December 20th without a CR. That's expected there will be one, probably pushing the funding issue back off to March of next year, but it's not in place yet. And that's just 9 days away, 10 days away. The House in Washington is split, kind of like ours in Michigan, very, very close. It's down to 3 members. Can sway the tide. You got a 220 to 215 split. There's no tiebreaker in Congress, unlike the Senate. And so it'll be interesting to see if the various initiatives we've been hearing about end up being funded, because of course Congress holds the purse strings, notwithstanding what some folks may want to do. So that'll be a big deal. We have as many as 3 new members of the FCC. Reading the rumor mill, the FCC chair has already resigned effective the end of the year, and so the Trump administration will govern the FCC with at least a 3-2 majority, and there's concern that may be even more than that. And we saw in the last Trump administration, the FCC that came out of that group back in 16 to 20, there were some pretty unfriendly local government rules that were enacted, and We spent a lot of time and money appealing those. We had some success, but I think it's fair to say that the federal agencies are really under assault, and it's not going to get better. And so once again, I've advised my ProTech clients and you folks, to the extent you're able and willing, to focus on what we can do here in Michigan for the next few years. What else? I do think that the worst will be in 25. There'll be a lot of going on, but I think by 26, it's a new election year. And I think moderation in terms of some of the things we're hearing about may come back to play, particularly in Congress, for those who have to run again, and also in our Michigan House as well. That a lot of the push from one extreme side to the other may settle down a bit. So I'm hoping 25 is our worst year, and that the things settle down after that. Digital equity. I know you folks have been very involved in that, and rightly so. But again, just to be aware, the new chair of the Senate Commerce Committee will be Senator Cruz, it looks like, and he has already said that DEI is dead. He doesn't want it supported. There's no basis for it, and so that's something again to be aware of. It doesn't mean it will happen or be cut, but that's some of the rumor mill. There's also a thing out there called 3557 House Representatives bill in Congress that could go a long way to eliminating local control over a great number of things, including franchise fees and funding and so on. And that bill is threatened to come back in the new Congress. And I apologize for jumping around, but that's just the nature of the beast these days. So that's it. I apologize for kind of going at it staccato, but those are my thoughts, Lynn.
Thanks.
So you kind of sound like the Grinch, but I know you're just trying to be the messenger. So a couple of, I guess, thoughts, questions. So the BEAD funding's already been appropriated. The program's pretty much already in place. So I'm thinking there's not really any of that in jeopardy. Like that should continue to be implemented. Would you agree?
Well, again, leaning into the rumors a little bit, there is a extreme group, you could refer to them as, in Congress, who are looking at addressing that, and certainly limiting it or expanding it to, like we said, satellite and fixed wireless. So some fluctuations are likely, but hopefully not the funding itself.
But it would make their money go farther, but it would dilute the quality of what we could get for our residents, I think.
Yeah.
And then, with the digital equity programs, we haven't really applied for or received any funding other than our Regional Planning Council is already working on funding. Again, that's already been appropriated. I would assume that goes forward as well. But what's been happening in Calhoun County, fortunately, has been a grassroots effort, right? It's been working with the resources we already have and just better coordinating and some local grant funds. So I'm still encouraged. I mean, I'm not encouraged that there could be no longer any requirement that the ISPs give affordability or anything like that. But the resources that we've been able to deploy have been primarily without the support of, the federal government.
Yeah, and that's good. Again, leaning on what we have here in Michigan, but and just as an aside, so the USF, the Universal Service Fund, and the ACP, which I think you folks are familiar with, there's still talk about bringing that back and or keeping them going in the case of the USF. So the rumor mill is what it is. I'm just trying to offer a couple of insights. But yeah, I'm trying not to be the Grinch either.
It is Christmas, Mike. Come on.
I know.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike, for your update. And
I wish I had better news, but think about that Supreme Court, 5-2.
yeah.
Ours.
All right, well, that's a good segue to digital equity subcommittee update. So Angela, why don't you fill us in on that?
Sure. Let's see here. So the Digital Equity Committee, we're still spending a lot of time learning about programs that exist in Michigan and hearing about different sort of regional plans and how they might then apply to a local level. So we have heard from Merit about their Digital Opportunities Compass, which is a framework they developed to support digital equity plans, and it's about monitoring and evaluating digital equity programs and all of the different layers to those programs, from governance to the actual acquiring of devices and making sure that connectivity is there. We have heard from Southwest Michigan Planning Commission, who is the regional entity that submitted a grant for mitten funds to create digital navigation programs across our region. And so that funding is still pending. We have been in contact with libraries across our region because, I love libraries and have a lot of contacts there. And there are more than 200 or 24 across our region that would be happy to serve as digital navigation centers in different capacities. So, and I know Calhoun County Libraries are on board for a lot of things. And we heard about the KCC lifelong learning classes for seniors. And a lot of our discussions the last couple months has been about expanding Albion's Tech Savvy Seniors program to other areas of the county. We heard from Lindsay last time about Albion's program, which has AmeriCorps students who visit people's homes and help them get set up with technology with social workers from CareWell services, but they also offer learning opportunities at the senior center in Albion and at Albion District Library most recently, where people can drop in and get technology help. And so Marshall District Library currently does that for people in our area. And so expanding that beyond the walls of the library to other locations to be able to drop in tech time. So I met with Paulette and Rod about that. And then Casey from KCC Lifelong Learning has been talking about expanding that kind of program in the Battle Creek area with KCC students and resources. So we're kind of just talking about how do we take what already exists and it does well at what it does and make it applicable to more people in our county. And I think that's about it. I'm looking at Lynn like, have we had other things you'd like me to address?
No, I think that about wraps it up. I mean, we've been doing a lot of work. You guys have been doing a lot of work, talking and trying to figure things out. So we appreciate the work that you're doing, Angela.
Lynn, can you just remind the group, since we have not met as frequently, the numbers in Calhoun County? I hate to put you on the spot, but like, how many unserved and underserved are we expecting that this might help? How many people, how many households could this BEAD grant help in our county?
Yeah, just a moment here. We have about 15,000 underserved and unserved locations.
Including fixed wireless only.
Yes, including fixed wireless. The fixed wireless only, there's actually almost 9,500 that are fixed wireless only. So those are big numbers. So total is about 15,000.
So a little more than 10% of our, well, that's households, not population, but
yeah,
I think it turns out to be closer to 20% of our households in the county, something like that.
Yes.
There's also a focus on the anchor institutions in the BEAD grant application process, right? If they can show how those anchor institutions will be included in the impact, right? There's a piece of it that focuses on that.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually, if they don't get support, letters of support from the governing bodies of, I think, all of the townships, all of the local governments to be included in the range that they're planning to serve, they get docked some points. So it will be important for us to coordinate with the local governments and with the anchor institutions. Maybe push the hardest for the ISPs that we think are best strategically for what we want to accomplish, knowing what they're planning to do and what their pricing is, and, you know, how much area they're planning to cover, trying to make sure they're not leaving holes in, you know, down the street and across the street and in, you know, in the same block. So I'm looking forward to those meetings as soon as we have the accurate information on the maps, because that's really the basis for the discussion. Like they actually have to create a map to send in with their application, so they need to know what we're working with.
Mhm. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, well, before we get to our discussion item, I just wanted to real quick talk about our quarterly schedule for next year. I have the dates in the agenda, March, June, September, and December. And then meeting time at still 3 o'clock in the garden level conference room here. I know originally we had them at 8 a.m. Is there any reason to change it? You know, as it is, it's at 3. Is there any need to change it to a different time?
Okay with me.
Is everyone okay with 3 still?
I'm guessing the people here are okay with it. Who knows about the people who are not here, right?
Right.
It's hard to tell. We've got about half and half, it looks like.
Yeah,
I think let's just go with it.
okay. And then I guess I need a motion to approve the meeting schedule then.
Move.
Okay, Art. And a second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, sounds good. Okay, and then for our discussion item, I wanted us to talk about, you know, as Kelly and I are going to be meeting with ISPs, I really want to just get input from you guys on what your concerns are. You know, we've done a lot of research last year, you know, we've done a lot of mapping stuff this year. So I just want to kind of revisit, you know, what are our main issues in Calhoun? Do we have new developments or future developments that we know about that are going to need funding or need coverage, but we don't know about those areas yet? You mentioned, Dr. Watson mentioned some areas in Albion. So those are, where are those?
So the east side of Albion, this is from my economic development component piece, that there is a movement afoot to create a larger region to that east side within Calhoun County. And that was the reason for the question I had gotten when I reached out to you, just to get a quick snapshot to make sure, because I know you would have the most up-to-date information to share with those folks over there. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's probably the only newest one that I've shared recently with you, right? Yeah.
Okay.
On the east side of Albion, where?
So this is linked to the AEDC's work development.
The 425 area up there?
Yeah.
Anyone else have any areas, you know, development that they're aware of? Or I know ISPs are also interested in using infrastructure that's already in place. So when I talked to 123net at a conference back in October, you know, they're interested in learning, you know, in Calhoun, what infrastructure is already there that they could tap into, whether it's middle mile, you know, middle mile things, stuff like that.
So out where I live in Duck Lake area,
Mhm.
Springcom's putting in the fiber optic. They've
Mhm.
already got some people on the west side of the lake up and running. And Frontier is in Homer Village. And they've already laid fiber optic out there and they're just moving forward. So if we're doing, what impact of what we do here will impact any of the people that will already have fiber optic accessibility in like the Duck Lake area, north of Albion or in Homer. Is there any impact, or does it help our grant work or not help it or diminish it, or does that have any impact at all on what we're doing?
Well, yeah, because if they are served by somebody else, then they are not eligible for funding. So in, around Duck Lake there, where they already have fiber and their speed is more than 100 by 20, then they aren't eligible for funding.
Yeah, then it's 100, I think 100, 250 and 5. I think is
Yeah.
what you told me.
Yeah, so, but in Homer, same thing, if Frontier has already started to move in, those areas, that have service already or are getting service from them, they would not be
There's
eligible.
nothing. Okay.
Yeah, but now if there's someone across the street that Frontier did not serve, they would be eligible for funding. And that's where Frontier could apply for BEAD funding to fill in those gaps. Does that make sense? Okay.
Len, do you know the status of the RDOF providers in our county? Like, I know MEC is one and they've done tons of work, but I mean, and they're still moving. Do we know if those are all complete or if any of them have the potential to default?
There are a couple small areas that are not MEC that could default. So MEC is not, they're not defaulting on theirs, but there are just a couple other small areas, nothing real significant. It's weird, there's certain areas on the map that have like 5 addresses and they received RDOF funding, but they haven't been served yet. So those are the type of areas that would be then eligible for BEAD funding. Those are the ones that they're looking at. Okay. So as for, existing infrastructure, keep in mind that we might be contacting, for instance, Battle Creek, to see if there's infrastructure that ISPs could use for middle mile, things like that. Other things that ISPs have talked about, and these are ways that governments and anchor institutions can help in this process, is permitting. ISPs really want help with permitting. The My High office they do actually have a person designated for permitting for the whole state, but at least it's a contact person at the state that if we run into permitting problems, we have a contact there that should be able to help. So that's good. Any support that local governments can do with permitting, especially at the township level, that'll be helpful for ISPs. Also, ISPs are gonna need land, to store their equipment and, supplies that they bring in. When they bring in truckloads of fiber, they need someplace to put it, right? And also, of course, housing for their workers. So those are things that, and of course, the supply chain, that's another thing that ISPs are concerned about. So if you guys have any ideas of locations for storing equipment or trucks, things like that, please feel free to share that information too.
Well, I think once we get their like planned areas of coverage, we can reach out to those specific townships too and ask about their, I mean, the county doesn't really have much publicly owned land. The townships do, so.
Okay. And the only other question I had for this group is, has anyone been contacted by any ISPs for letter of support?
No.
You haven't? That's good, okay.
You say you have drafts.
Yes,
Can you send those out ahead of time then?
yeah,
That would be helpful.
okay.
Because if they're gonna try to turn around fast, just have a draft. in there.
Okay, I can do that. That's one thing the ISPs in this pre-application process, they've really been trying to push getting those letters of support beforehand, but yet, you know, we haven't seen their plans, so it's kind of hard to write a letter of support when you don't know exactly what they're planning on yet, so. But we'll get the drafts out, and that way it'll be easy to just plug in what you need to plug in. All right. Next is member updates. Does anyone have anything to share? I can say I'm excited for 2025 because I think we finally are going to get some momentum here, and I know the BEAD funding is over a 4-year process, but still, you know, the sooner we can get going, the better.
Yeah, I think the Merit is saying, well, so 2025 is basically the application process, and that we may not see construction start till 2026. Is that?
Yeah, yep, that's accurate.
Better late than never.
That's right. All right, well, thanks everyone for showing up. I appreciate it. And I'll get those letters of support out to you and the schedule for next year. So keep an eye out for the invites for your calendar. And hope you have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Christmas,
you.
thank
Same
you.
to you.
Everybody.